Hello and welcome. Today we're going to learn how to make this drawing of oil pastel apples. We will be using the 16 color set of crayons, a pencil, and an eraser. I have an 8x10 piece of paper, and I always like to try to find the middles. So just use your best guess and on the tape, make a mark for where you believe the middle is. This will just help us stay oriented in the same direction as we're drawing things. Now, I noticed that in my picture that I've already done, this line for the basket is about at the middle. I also noticed that the right side of the apple is just a little past the middle. So those are helpful things for us when we go to draw something that we see onto a blank piece of paper. So I'm going to start out by drawing a floating platform right at the middle for that line, and then kind of do this pattern for the basket. So we have the two lines in the basket, then we skip a teeny bit of a space, and we have two more lines for the basket, and we skip a little bit of space, and we have two more lines for the basket. And let's see how we're doing from the bottom. We're doing quite well. We have two more lines for the bottom of our basket. So we basically just drew this area right here. That just helps us anchor our picture and get it in the place that we want it. All right, so next, my apple is a little to the right of the bottom and it's pretty close to the bottom. So if you notice, this is kind of a flat platform here for our apple. So just above the middle, I'm gonna put that flat platform for my apple there too. And the top of my apple fits between these two rungs of my basket. So between these two right here. So I'll go over here and there's the top of my basket. All right, see how that's above the other line there? Okay, so then I will start at the top and curve down to the bottom platform on that side. And then I'll start at the top and curve down to the side on that side. Wow, I actually like the shape of this apple better than that one. Okay, cool. All right, so then I'm gonna put a nice curve for that tunnel where the stem comes out, and then kind of have my stem plucked down in the hole. And I wanted an opportunity to have green, so I have included some leaves. So I will start down here and work my way up. My leaf is gonna stop just above this line. So up, 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 and just above that line. And then I'm going to work my way back from the top and back from the bottom. And I like to call that X-ray vision because in real life you can't see through those things. So let's erase out our X-ray vision. We have our first apple drawn. Now I have a little disclaimer about our apples. Oftentimes when we draw things like apples or groups of things, we might get started and we might start drawing them very small. Although there are tiny apples in the world, I would ask you to try to get your apples to be quite large so that we can fit them all largely on this page. We're hoping for about 5 apples because odd numbers are great and that will be good for coloring. And on an 8x10 size paper, a life-size apple is a good idea. So we want pretty much a size of an apple that you could hold in your hand. So try with me if you can to get these apples about the same size. They don't have to be the same shape, but about the same size. All right, now we're gonna get started on the next apple. Notice for the next apple that it's farther back on the table. We can tell this because the bottom of the apple is higher up. And this one is in front of that one, see? The other thing we notice about this apple is it's pretty much next to the basket because here's the bottom of this basket, and so technically that one's a little farther back on the table. And so it can't share the same space as the basket. So we need this little gap here to show that our apple is not occupying the same exact space as the basket. So here we go. We're going to find a line that's about halfway up our apple We'll draw a line there. And the top of our apple is a little bit higher than this line that we have. So here's the line that we have, and a little bit higher. See, a little higher. And then we will curve it. Curve, 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 curve. And curve, 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 curve. It's okay to go off the page on this side, like that. All right, next, we want to draw the tunnel for where the apple core would be, down in the center, and put a stem up out of that one. I'm not going to choose to put a leaf on this one, but if you want to, you can. With the 2 apples in the front done, now we can complete the basket. So we know the basket stops just past this apple. And we know that the basket is round, so it's going to create this curve as it goes up. So let's start with this bottom one. So I've created a line a little bit as high as my apple. And I'm going to start this bottom one and curve up to there. And then I'm going to go again and curve up and farther. Okay, see how that has like gap right there? This is a piece of basket material woven. And so now these are all going to follow their way over. Follow, 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 follow. And we don't have to worry about drawing more basket over there because that's kind of where it stops. The top part of the basket has these nice verticals. And if you notice, they kind of do a little hook like a candy cane. So let's do our line that goes up. So we have our number 1. And then we have our candy cane at the top. And that's going to help us with the top of this. So we will now go from here and kind of follow this shape all the way over. So it's about equidistant here. You don't want to start getting close and become pointy. You want a nice band up here. And then we're going to start with our basket lines. Here's your next tip. Take a look at your oil pastel. If they are super skinny, then you can make these a little closer together than me. But if you notice, they should be a bit chunky and not too easy for doing detail work. So you only want your basket material to be wide enough that you can fit the tip of that oil pastel in there. So with that being said, you know, maybe 1.5 millimeters would be the smallest I would go. And just imagine that your basket is being woven, woven, woven. And as you get over here, it kind of gets straighter as it gets to this side. So in other words, don't put 103 lines here. That's just really a good tip. Trust me. We're going to be putting these lines at a diagonal. Notice that they are made out of the same basket material, or you will in a second. And so the width of those should be similar to the width of these, but they're going to go at a diagonal. So diagonal, diagonal, diagonal. And you're going to do that here, here, and here. I find it is easier to do the apples that are closest, or anything. Do whatever is closest, because then you don't have to worry about like overlapping and X-ray vision quite as much. It's just a little simpler. So when you're putting a bunch of things in the basket, like we have up here with these 3 apples, this one that's in the front is just going to be easier to do. So we want this one to be about halfway over, and we want to kind of be a rainbow shape that goes off. So you don't want to be super short like that. So you want to really see. So you're going to go up like a nice curve and then let it go off the side if necessary. So you get that nice shape. And then imagine that this is like the rim of that apple, and get that nice kind of G shape and then put that stem in. Now apple stems are normally a little wider in the space where they pluck out. And then we can get the next apple in. So the next apple is like kind of up a bit more, and it's going to start a little bit off, and we're going to have it come right up on this lip of this basket. And so up, 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 and get that curve to kind of join behind. There, that looks pretty good. I used a soft sketchy line here because I want to put another leaf in, and if I press really hard, then it'll be hard to erase. So I want to be gentle so that I can erase well. And so I'm pretty happy with that shape. Maybe just a little bit smaller on this side. So the tunnel for the apple core is here. So I'm going to put it right there. I'm going to have my stem going this way, wider at the top. And then I'm going to have my leaf coming out and down to the left. That's actually the vein in the center of the leaf. So I will start here, kind of work my way up, back down to the stem, start here wide, back down to the stem, and then I can erase the X-ray vision out of that leaf. All right, we're moving right along. The last apple is the apple back here, and it has less details because it's just kind of keeping our eyes moving on the picture, but we want to include it. So it's behind both of these apples, and so it's about here. So we're just going to have a nice curve kind of going off in that direction. All right, the last thing is our horizontal for the table. So it's going to be about here, and just draw a line straight this way. You could have used another piece of paper to trace for that line, but I chose to just draw it because it was a short distance and I was pretty sure I could do it. Okay, we're done with the pencil time, and now it is time to trace with a Sharpie. I'm going to be using a black Sharpie marker, fine point, to trace this today because later on I'm going to be using black liquid watercolor as the surface color that goes on top of the whole thing. If you want to, you can be creative and you could use a brown marker and brown paint because I don't know, maybe you have that and maybe you don't have this. But I plan today to use the black, and you can take a look and see what you think, see if you like it. And always, I promote experimentation. So if you want to experiment with colors and do a brown one too, you're welcome to do it. Both are going to look good. All right, here I go, tracing with my black marker. I've traced and I've erased, but there's two things that I want to show you now that I probably should have mentioned before, but it's not a problem to do it now. So one of them is easy peasy. All you have to do is color the apple stems black. That's just going to save us. There's enough contrast that it's going to be nice to have those nice black stems, and we don't have to try to color in with oil pastel in those tiny spaces. The second thing is, you'll notice with this edge here that this basket is round. We know that. Baskets are round, or they have a space that you can put the fruit in. And so this one is round and goes around. So one of the things that we want to do is right up here, instead of having this shape, we're going to put a little curve for the basket going around that apple. So all I did was put two rainbow shapes that got smaller right there on the apple, and now I will give you a close-up of that so that you can see that before we get going on with the color. Time for the fun coloring part. Now, if you have the crayons that don't tell you what color things are, the first color that we're going to start with is yellow ochre, and it is a yellowy brown color. So I think it's the only one, yes, it's the only one that looks like yellow with a little brown in it, kind of like butterscotch pudding. All right, and we're going to use this to color the basket. When we color the basket, we're going to try our hardest not to go on those black lines. I know, we've created a challenge for ourselves. Those of you who watched the video all the way through before drawing the picture, you will be happy that you did that. So that when you drew these lines, you definitely drew them far enough apart, because we're going to take this and we're going to color in between the lines. And we're even going to leave some white parts showing next to the black lines so that those black lines can be there. Here we go. and then I will show you a close-up so that you can see what I've done. Next, we're going to use the brown one. It's a reddish brown, kind of looks like rust a little bit. And we're just going to put a single line of this color on all the yellow parts, or the yellow ochre parts, right in that basket. We're ready for the white one. Okay, white has the ability to cover those black lines. Think whiteout. So with this one, we want to be a little more cautious, and I'm not even going to go up on those like little corners up there, because if I do, it's going to make it possibly cover those black lines that I had. But I am going to kind of do the tops of these and then kind of the middles of these. So I'm going to go top, top. And this is blending with the colors that we had there. So it's going to blend the yellow and the brown together. I'm going to do that on the whole basket. We'll use white again later at the end, but for now, we're done with white and we're going to move on to yellow. All right, yellow is just going to help us. It doesn't show up a lot, but it's just a good idea because we're kind of making the apples be like gala apples a little bit. I know I like the red, so, but anyway, let's just use some yellow. It won't hurt anything. It'll help us find our directions when we're coloring. So this apple, for instance, has like a sunshine shape around that middle area. I'm using pretty good pressure. Some of you were with me at the library when we did a painting with some apples and a blue vase, but this will turn out a bit different, but the yellow may look familiar and may trouble you slightly, but it's going to be good. Don't worry. You can watch till the end to find out if you want. Okay, that's enough yellow. When I was preparing my example, I moved to red next. And, sounded like I said redneck. Okay, I am from Kentucky. Anyway, I want to use the gray first this time because when I did the red first and then the gray, I found that some of the gray and red picked up and kind of went everywhere. And although it doesn't bother me, it might bother you. So we're going to do it this way instead because you'll have the ability to have kind of more straightforward gray color. So from this line down, use pretty good pressure and color that whole tabletop surface with the gray one. When I colored with the gray, I tried to stay off of my black lines again. The gray has white in it, so if it gets on the black lines, it will cover them. So I just got close, but not too close. I even left maybe a faint kind of empty paper right next to that, and that's going to be fine too. And now I can go and do my red. So red it is, and it's just plain red. It's not vermilion, so the reddest red that you have will work great. And again, we're not going to color across the black line, so I'll color on this side, this apple red, and then later I will color on that side, that apple red. I will not color across that line. All right, here we go. I like to use circle motions when I color apples because they are kind of circular, and that helps me have pretty good pressure and be able to fill in pretty nicely. You notice I'm coloring right over top of that yellow, and you maybe wonder why it's even there at all, but I have a feeling it's helping. All right, here we go. We have all 5 apples colored red. Now I'm going to use just a little orange to do a little bit more blending of those apples to kind of fill in any white spots that they have. And you may not notice much difference, but because the black is a cool color, I like having the orange on there to kind of warm this up, and it'll make it nice and bright. So we'll do that. And plus, psychologically, it's just easier for us to put a new color on top of where we've already been coloring with red so much. And we can press hard and fill in any of those white places that are left behind from not coloring with such good pressure before. Every empty space will have the black watercolor dye in it. So this is kind of helping there not be too many spots for the black watercolor dye to go. Time for the leaves. We're going to use the green, the straightforward green, so the darker of the two greens in the 16 color set, and the one that just looks like a leprechaun if you have the 25 color set. And we're going to use it to just kind of put a little edge of green next to things, and we're not coloring things in. So I'm just kind of putting some line work on there. Like that, because I don't like boring, and these are going to be way more interesting to have the dark green and the yellow green both on there than to just have one or the other. So that's how that will be. Next, yellow green. Here's the yellow green. It kind of looks like glow in the dark green, and you'll color on top of the dark green but not on the black lines, and it will blend and make that smooth. And so some places will just be yellow green and other places will have the dark green mixed. It's shadow time, and we're going to use purple for our shadow because the black is a nice cool color of black and purple is a cool color, and that's going to be great for our shadows. And our light source is going to be that way, shining this way. So our shadows are going to go this way too. So I've got my purple. I'm going to put nice purple on this side of my apple and the bottom of my apple. And then I'm going to put purple on my gray and have it go this way on this side, like that. And now I'm going to do the next apple. On the next apple, this apple would maybe put some purple on there. At the bottom, get this whole side of my apple, and then my shadow under and off the page that way. Then I'm gonna have purple under my basket, and everywhere this basket has the sideways basket weaving material pressing in on the basket materials that are inside, you'll have like a depth to it. So you're going to kind of go line, 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 line. And then over here on this side, more purple on this side for the shadow side over here. If you have the 25 color set, be sure to use this regular purple, not the one that's called light purple, and they look almost exactly the same. So the one that's darker of the two is the one that you want for this, because there's a little white in the other one, and that's going to cover the black lines more than this would. So all right, now we're ready for the apples. Shadow under that leaf on the left side of the apple and down low. Cast shadow from that apple on that apple. Shadow on this side and down low, and a little bit in there, and then shadow on this side. Like that. Also, I'm going to do a little purple on the leaves, so kind of get a little purple down there, a little purple here, and we'll have the basket putting a little shadow on the side of our apple too over here, because they're next to each other. This one's out front, so it's not going to have a basket shadow on it, but that one would. All right, time for white again. The white one is for the highlights. So apples are shiny. They're going to have these like points of light, and it's going to be on this side. So I'm just going to kind of follow that curvy side of the apple, get those little highlights on there. And I'm pressing pretty hard because it's hard to get the white on there because we've got a lot of color on there already. So it's a little hard to get it on there, a little tricky. And I'm maybe, oh, we already did white on the basket, so we don't have to worry about that. All right, cool. We're done and ready for the black watercolor dye. Yay! Here we go. I have black liquid watercolor dye. My hand is in a glove because I don't want to have stained hands all day. And I have a sponge that I just use on that one, so it's a little wet. And in one of our meetups, one of the other students mentioned that that might be helpful. And so if you have a wet sponge, just be sure to wring it out so that there's like no drippy juices of water, because that will dilute it, and then you'll end up with a pale gray instead of a darker black that we're hoping for. I am standing at an easel so that you and me can see this at the same time. But you probably will want your picture to be flat when you do this so that you can squirt a medallion size amount of this on it flat. Since I'm standing up, I'm going to squirt a silver dollar size on the sponge instead. And then I'm going to go all over it. Left and right and up and down and circles and this way and that way. And I can hear the sound of some drips, and also the sponge is knocking off any of those little oil pastel schnoodlings that are on there from where I pressed really hard when I was coloring. All right, get it really dark. Repetition is the trick here, so keep going this way and that way and that way and this way and diagonally and left and right. And up and down, and circles. So the more times you do it, especially up here, because remember we didn't color anything there because that's where it's going to get dark. So up there, it'll get darker, darker. All right, cool. It looks cool like that, but we're going to use a paper towel now to dry it off. I'm being gentle because I don't want to smear it. Just want to dry it off. That looks great. You can see I went a little bit on my black lines there, and so it's a little blurrier. If you enjoy seeing straight up black, then with the purple, don't even go in the black lines. So now I know, I learned to. If you want this to be blacker, now that we've kind of dried it, you can use your sponge to just go there a little bit, because it's like adding. The more you add on there, the darker it'll get. So you want to do that to make it darker. And then you will still have to kind of dry off the oil pastel-y part up here too. Okay, I'm satisfied with that and ready to take the tape off. I've picked the corners free and I'm all ready to remove the tape. So this is drafting tape and it's about a 1/2 inch side, so it's 1/2 inch size. So it's half on, half off. And when I pull, I'm gonna pull low and at a right angle so that it makes that kind of capital letter L shape, even though it's upside down, to remove that. And so not an acute angle, not an obtuse angle, but a perfectly right angle. I did notice something recently that I was using a green painter's tape, and when I pull at a right angle on that, it tends to just rip off. So I had to go slower and more carefully and just pick it off when I was using the green painter's tape. So you may notice some changes, and you can of course adjust accordingly. But with the drafting tape, it is very consistent that if you pull at a right angle, you will get really good results every single time. And if you pull straight across, it'll tear into your art. All right, there it is, all finished. And after the tape is off, you can use a marker and sign it right there. All right, I hope I see you at a meetup for our Apple meetup. And you're welcome to bring other projects from the other videos to those meetups too. See you soon. Bye.